So think about this. So I want you to think about this. I want you to listen to this. So we know what the Jim Crow law was about, right?
Yeah.
Does everybody know the Jim Crow law?
Yeah.
How did that come into being? Do you know? Any idea? Any idea how Jim Crow law came into being? Anybody?
Are you able to refresh my mind?
Huh?
Somebody?
Say what?
Are you able to refresh my mind?
Let me put this over here so people hear. Go ahead. Jim Crow law was like redlining. Go ahead.
To just make sure like they're separated and don't have much power, so they don't like get money and
Okay.
go up the.
So who was
ladder.
they when you say they?
Well, it was white people.
Okay, so white people.
Yeah.
You said the white people didn't want black people
To gain
stepping up and
power,
gain
yeah.
power.
KKK, we know.
Okay.
Sharecropping.
Okay.
After slavery, slavery didn't really end when slavery ended. You know that.
Okay. What you mean when they said?
When they said.
Because when it ended, but not when they said.
Not they said. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So
Okay.
they had sharecropping, and they had they put a lot of black people in jail
Okay.
over the crack versus cocaine. So still today, it's
So you might be thinking about Reaganomics when that kicked in. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. Jim Crow law was actually brought about a decision between Southern blacks and Southern whites.
Under separate but equal, the Southern states where we have a biracial society and have had, much of it came about as a result of the desire of the Negroes themselves to separate. Separate schools. Many parts of the South were voted for and approved by the Negro leaders themselves. The South built many new schools, many of them far superior to those that were attended by white children, and the facilities were gradually being equalized.
It wasn't the whites who came up with the law. It was blacks and whites agreeing to stay separate while they work on their races. Booker T. Washington, he said it well. Booker T. Washington said, be separate, right? He said, be like the fist, but separate like the fingers. Be separate. So that you can work on, so that black folks just coming out of slavery, we need to build ourselves up and work on our race. White folks, do your thing. Black folks, do our thing. Now, you've heard of, I don't know if you heard of the Gilded Age. So Gilded Age, black folks really, if the trajectory that black folks was making during that time was astronomical. Economics, finances, family, education, literacy, religion, praising God in church, religion. Black folks was actually moving faster than any other race in America as far as growth in all those areas. But what happened? That's the question. What happened? Now, I want you to keep in mind, Jim Crow wasn't a white thing. Southern blacks and Southern whites said, good, we want to be separate. Now, I have videos showing, even around the civil rights movement time, blacks were like, we like segregation. We don't want to be integrated.
The issue of school integration was a battle long fought by the NAACP, but it didn't really gain a lot of traction because, for the most part, people were not as concerned about that issue.
People that I was around in my family and when I attended my segregated schools, there was not a lot of talk about racism. I think that most black Americans were very optimistic. We knew things were going to improve.
In the black community, we were prepared by setting objectives for ourselves. This was done primarily in the home, in the church, and in the school at that particular time, because schools held a heavy reinforcement into our characters because they were black schools. Schools were not integrated at that time. Black teachers played an extremely significant role in the development of black children. Do the best that you can with your life. You are unique. You have a contribution to make. You have something to offer. You have a talent. You have skills. Many, many other things that you do have. This instilled within us a tremendously great deal of dignity and somebodyness.
The civil rights movement stepped in and forced it. Blacks were like, we got our own stuff, we're good. And this is in the 50s and 60s. Blacks did not, it was forced upon them because of what the civil rights movement was doing. The civil rights movement was connecting with the government. They were shaking hands with the presidents, right? The presidents, all the politicians.
J. Edgar Hoover finds out that King has all of these communists in the civil rights movement.
The Communist Party of the United States.
He tells Bobby Kennedy to tell King, these guys are communists, get them out of your movement. If not, they gonna cause trouble. He tells John F. Kennedy to tell it. They have to go because we're affiliated with you now, Martin. You in the White House and you got communists with you. And if people find out about this, if you go down, we go down. Get rid of them. King lied and said that he would.
The communists were more than willing to use any politician and any party to further their agenda. King did hold a Republican Party registration card in the 1950s, but this again was not due to any kind of loyalty to constitutional ideology, but rather the fact that groups like the Civil Rights Congress, which was a communist front group, were successful in influencing legislation that Republicans pushed under Eisenhower.
Martin Luther King Jr., all of them, they was for the government. They weren't for the people. The government is not really for the people. The government is for the government. The government is for seizing everything we have so that they can have the means, productions of everything, and they would distribute as they see fit. Okay, so that means they're going to first get their mansions and boats and send their kids to college. And I'm saying, and the government is a variety of people. It's not just white folks. It's a variety of people, right? It's its own entity. So that's the thing. So this is what I'm here to educate people on, because we've been given the wrong idea and the wrong impression of Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement. It wasn't for our benefit. It was for our detriment.
Stanley Levison became one of King's closest advisors, helping craft his speeches, shape his image, manage his finances, and pay his salary. Through Levison, King was connected to a network of communist organizers who understood how to turn moral authority into political power. Martin Luther King Jr., who they called the moral leader of America, turned the spiritual battlefield into a political one. Because to understand the civil rights movement, we must see not just the marches in the streets, but the behind-the-scenes manipulative maneuverings of a sinister conglomerate in the biblical gospel that they replaced with a Marxist one. It's very troubling that Martin Luther King, a supposed minister of the gospel, was actively lying about communist involvement in his organization and in the civil rights movement. He was literally being a deceiver. This fact alone reveals what his true interest was, not to call upon people to repent and follow Christ, but to use the church in his position as a minister in pursuit of a cause that's actually anti-Christ.
Him and his people will go through the land exaggerating grievances. So let's say you two got into a bad argument, but then you were both thinking about making up. He comes along, he goes, "Oh, dude, why are you gonna make up with him, man? He just talking about your mama like that, man. Why would you do that?" And you go, "You know what? He did say that. No, man, I ain't gonna make up with you unless you do." So this is what the whole civil rights movement was doing. They were known for traveling all through, different places and picking out these things that were happening, true, but they were like putting this magnifying glass on it and making it a lot bigger than what it was. So, and you might be familiar with that. People instigating. Maybe you would have made up, but because the instigators came along, you said no. I ain't making up with him.
If Mississippi had been a livable place, if Negroes had been able to get skills and education in Mississippi, many of the problems that we face in Chicago today wouldn't be there now.
Throughout the 60s, King, as directed by Stanley, would travel the country, including places like Chicago, to rile people up by exploiting and exaggerating grievances and get people fighting amongst themselves.
Do you know, any of you guys ever heard of the Margaret Sanger Award?
Sounds familiar.
Okay, do you know what that? Okay, so the Margaret Sanger Award, so Margaret Sanger, she was the woman who created Planned Parenthood.
Oh yeah, I know.
Okay, you heard of that?
Yeah.
Now, she was also honored by Hitler.
Who was the real Margaret Sanger? Why was she heralded by the Third Reich as the greatest socialist in America? Why do modern Democrats who claim to support the African American population justify presenting her as a cultural icon? In 1939, Sanger began what was called the Negro Project, alongside black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, and Reverend Adam Clayton Powell. This was the plan to have black doctors performing on black patients to perpetuate the sterilization of blacks who were deemed inferior, as many black patients were suspicious of white doctors. What they leave out is that Sanger only opposed abortions if that meant not producing the best, healthiest, most intelligent from Caucasian couples. For blacks, Jews, and brown-skinned people, as well as low IQ white people and those with birth defects, they were not to be allowed. This was what the Nazis adopted. Margaret Sanger was one of the few women to be given an honorific title and inducted into the Ku Klux Klan, and exalted by none other than Adolf Hitler and Dr. Joseph Goebbels. Margaret Sanger's rabid racism, anti-Semitism, and violent suggestions on eliminating all non-whites from American society endeared her to the eugenics crowd. She wanted an all-white, healthy, intelligent society built upon the concept of racial eradication years before Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party were even a thought.
Yeah, so the whole thing, I remember when Hitler did wanted to eliminate the Jews, genocide and all that, he got the idea from Margaret Sanger. He honored her. Margaret Sanger, girl, yeah, Margaret Sanger. Now, I mean, you can go on YouTube. She's saying she want to eradicate all black people. She want black people gone. Genocide, kill them all. Anybody who's not the white right person, because she was all for white supremacy. If you don't have the blonde hair, blue eyes and all that, you're done. W.E.B. Du Bois said, he connected with Margaret Sanger and said, look, let's put these centers in black neighborhoods. He gave her the idea to put Planned Parenthood centers in black neighborhoods. W.E.B. Du Bois, who was against Booker T. Washington. Oh, wait, what? You trying to genocide? Why you with this white woman? She says it. I want all black people gone. Martin Luther King Jr. stepped up and got an award from her. He took an award from Margaret Sanger. Yeah, he praised her and everything. Wait a minute. Why are you praising a woman who won genocide on your own people? She didn't hide it. You can go to YouTube. She says it. I want them gone. Wait a minute. What's that all about? Well, the thing is, I look at after hearing a lot of stuff that I have, because I can't share all the information with this, a lot, too much. If you ever go look up, it's called the MLK Project. All the films, all a ton of information. There's two series of it. The enemy that we're not fighting, that we should all be fighting, that was actually leading and heading the civil rights movement, was the Soviet Union, the communists.
So you...
Yeah, they backed the Soviet Union, the communists, they backed the civil rights movement.
These are the people who KGB wanted very much to recruit in the United States. All these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion, only to destabilize the nation.
Martin Luther King Jr., he has his entire compadre, his entire ilk was comprised of communists, either communists from the Soviet Union or they had CPUSA here in the United States, Communist Party USA.
Through Levison, King was connected to a network of communist organizers who understood how to turn moral authority into political power.
Dr. King, have communists infiltrated the movement?
I certainly don't think so, Mr. Spivak, and I would like to vigorously deny that.
He also connected King with Jack Odell, who also conveniently left the party as he got involved with King in the civil rights movement.
I left the Communist Party so that I would not be in the Communist Party. So if the question came up, are you in the Communist Party? No, I'm not in the party.
But you didn't become an anti-communist, you didn't?
No, you better believe I didn't become an anti-communist.
Jack Odell, Bayard Rustin, Clarence Jones, James Bevel, James Baldwin, and many others. All of these men, at some point or another, worked with or organized for the Communist Party, and they were the men that King surrounded himself with.
I had been a communist, when I was 19. And you worked for them like you worked for everybody else. Except since they were communists, you're not supposed to say you worked for them. No.
Now, they aren't afraid to say it. Martin Luther King Jr. wouldn't say it because he's the figurehead. And back at that time, communists were being like, you know, shut down, like, oh, we hate communists. But now today it's like, you can be a communist if you want. It's okay. But back then, you could, like, saying that you were a communist, you'd be like excommunicated out of here, you know, they don't want you around anymore. So he couldn't say that he was for that whole idea. He was more so for Marxism, right? Which is also a lead into communism. Man, they show you the videos, how black folks prior to the civil rights movement, I mean, economy, family, education was booming. Schools in the South, they have videos of schools in the South that were, for black students, way better than white student schools. You're like, the white student schools look like a shack. Black students dress nice, nice schools, everything.
Separate schools. Many parts of the South were voted for and approved by the Negro leaders themselves. The South built many new schools, many of them far superior to those that were attended by white children.
But you had a lot of black folks who found that getting funding from the government should go in their pockets rather than going into the schools. So things got worse with getting, so they start going, well, let's get secondhand books. Let's get secondhand football jerseys. Let's get, so you had a lot of black folks who were actually turning against our people to actually share the funding, put the funding in the black community like they should. So it was a lot of devious black folks. So the thing is, we're talking about white folks because we're not looking at what's really there, which is communism. What does that say right there?
By Martin Luther King accepting the Margaret Sanger Award, does that make him anti-black American?
Okay, so you have to decide that, right? But let me see. So here's Barack Obama.
In 1966, Martin Luther King Jr. was the first recipient of the Margaret Sanger Award.
I feel that organized nonviolent resistance is the most powerful weapon that oppressed people can use in breaking loose from the bondage of oppression.
In 1966, the Planned Parenthood Federation of America gave its first Margaret Sanger Award to Martin Luther King Jr. And in his acceptance speech, which was delivered by his strong and wonderful wife, Coretta, Dr. King wrote, "Our sure beginning in the struggle for equality by nonviolent direct action may not have been so resolute without the tradition established by Margaret Sanger and people like her."
Oh yeah, people like her that want to kill the black race. Education, huh?
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna look into it when I get home.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. I don't know, did y'all like that education or?
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Eye-opening? Yeah. I mean, it's deep. Like when I heard, you know, I'm like, wait a minute, he's a communist. I don't want, like I've owned my own businesses since I was 22. I don't want the government taking over my business. That's what happens eventually. The government takes over. So, and if you think about it, the whole civil rights movement was based on giving the government more power.
It really comes down to each individual deciding for themselves whether or not King is worthy of honor from you. So he may have told some lies, given some misleading information, a misguided message he put out there. But King and the Civil Rights Movement had an agenda that they set forth, and they were going to achieve their goal by any means necessary. But you have to decide whether or not what they did holds value for our society, our country, today and in the future. Or was it a detriment to us that they had so much space to do the things they did, right? To push forth their agenda on us. Was it to our detriment? We all have to make that decision on our own.